Say, Sator, why did we come here? That suspicious mountain range was the destination of this journey. A particular note was the city near the Cadinia's mountain range. It was a city of the Aina Multiracial League, which was located near the mountains, in other words, a neighbor of Inveria, Serak 3. While it was not the capital of the Aina Multiracial League, it was one of the largest cities in the surrounding countries, and it boasted a population of over 400,000 people. The two of them had been traveling towards the city on their covered wagon for 4 days now. Kino had no longer been able to contain herself and asked that question. It had been 5 years since they left Inveria. They had not even come near it until now, yet they had suddenly, in a great departure from their original direction of travel, moved towards Serak 3, so it was hard to fault Kino for reacting like that. In truth, he had no reason to continue hiding the truth from Kino. All he had to do was say, "This mountain range might contain the reason that you became undead, so I wanted to check it out." Even so, Suzuki Sator could not bring himself to say it. That was because even Suzuki Sator could not explain his reasons for coming here. On his part, curiosity was the biggest motivation for Suzuki Sator to go there, but if he actually said that, Kino would have attacked his explanation from various angles, and then made him take the wagon elsewhere. If Kino had said, "There's no reason for you to put yourself in danger," then Suzuki Sator would only be able to reply, "Well, yes." The other reason was because Suzuki Sator did not want to get Kino's hopes up. The greater one's hopes and expectations rose, the greater the disappointment when they collapsed. It was just like how Suzuki Sator had clung to the hope that his guildmates would return, and had fallen into despair when he realized that nobody had come. 3 years ago, Suzuki Sator had seen Kino pretend to give up hope. In that case, what would happen if Suzuki Sator gave her hope now? Suzuki Sator was clearly uneasy as he glimpsed the past when he had first met Kino. Therefore, Suzuki Sator did his best to deceive her. There's no special reason for it. Really. Kino turned to peek at Suzuki Sator's face, but Suzuki Sator was not afraid. His skeletal face was expressionless, and he did not have to worry about the beating of his heart. In other words, he could probably lie without being found out. However, the way Kino narrowed her eyes and kept peering at Suzuki Sator made him feel a little uneasy. Though his body could not sweat, he still wiped the hands holding the reins on his robe anyway. And then, Kino cut in. "Liar." "I'm not lying," Suzuki Sator replied immediately. He was deceiving himself, that must have been it, that must have been why he could reply so quickly. Even he wanted to praise himself. His words were immaculately ordered, and he had not shown any emotion. Surely anyone who heard them would think Suzuki Sator was telling the truth. However. "Yes, you are, Sator. You must be in some sort of difficulty. I've been traveling with you for 5 years, even if it doesn't show on your face, I can tell if you're lying." There was power in Kino's words, and he could sense her great confidence. She was certain that Suzuki Sator had some other objective in mind. He wanted to say she was overthinking things, but she had seen right through Suzuki Sator. Suzuki Sator unconsciously felt his face. It was cold, bony and skeletal, without any hint of expressions. How on earth could such a face produce emotions that Kino could read? "Well done, Kino," Suzuki Sator sighed, as though giving up. Fufufu. Kino giggled happily. "It's been 5 years. I can roughly guess what you're thinking. After all, I've been by your side all this time." "It's been 5 years, huh? Indeed, after such a long time it's possible you might be able to tell what mood I'm in just by looking at my face." The character could not change their facial expressions in Yggdrasil. The only way to tell how someone else was feeling was by their voice. Producing a normal voice and minimizing the times he sounded different was not a skill unique to Suzuki Sator. When he had been depressed, someone else had also seen through how he had forced himself to appear jovial. The words that person had said still lingered in his heart. "We're friends, after all, I guess we can still understand each other." "Indeed, that's right, Kino." What's wrong? Are you feeling lonely? Or very happy? Sator. "Ah, that's right. The way I feel about you being able to understand my feelings is definitely not loneliness, Kino. If I had to put it into words, it would be gratitude." Suzuki Sator released the reins in his hands. He had made up his mind. He had prepared himself for this. He was filled with determination that would never waver. For that reason, Suzuki told the lie he had prepared beforehand. "Our destination is the city of the Aina Multiracial League, Serak 3. I learned that there was a rare item there, and our objective this time is to recover it." "You're lying." "I'm not too sure, but it still feels like you're lying." "Oh well, never mind. You're hiding something, but you must be worried about me, right, Sator?" Suzuki Sator hesitated over whether he should not, but doing so would mean admitting that he was lying to her. "It's fine, Sator. Don't worry about it. Just go." "Ah, thank you, Kino." As they approached the borders of the Aina Multiracial League, they found their path blocked by a long defensive line. It was not made of heavy stone blocks, but a simple wooden fence. It was not hard to imagine that it had been built to curb the spread of the zombies. Such defensive structures would be enough to deal with zombies, but the zombies' true threat lay in their numbers. If an entire nation's worth of zombies in the millions flooded in at once, it would be completely useless. However, a few short years would not be enough to build a kilometers-long fence around a nation's borders. He came to a stop some distance away and used flight to quickly scout the area, but he did not find anything like a checkpoint. All the roads leading to the Aina Multiracial League had been sealed off. In addition, he had spotted patrols. He knew that they probably would not let them through, even if he pleaded. "Please let us pass." Therefore, he used gate to teleport them and a wagon ahead. After that, they drove the wagon down unused roads. They felt there was no need to pretend to make camp at nightfall, so they maintained their speed and traveled day and night. They passed through several cities filled with wandering zombies, and were less than a day away from Serak 3. However, they sensed something was amiss. This is strange. Indeed, it's very strange. They had seen all kinds of zombies in Kino's country. Not all of them had been formerly human. It would seem all living things above a certain size had been converted into zombies. In the wild, they had encountered plotting animal zombies. That much was the same in the Aina Multiracial League. However, they were nowhere to be seen as they approached Serak 3. Perhaps someone had exterminated the zombies, but typically they would have eliminated the animal zombies outdoors as well. That was the problem. Sator looked straight ahead. Serak 3 lay down the road ahead of him, and beyond that was Mount Cadinius. If this phenomenon was limited to the surrounding area, then there must have been some kind of connection there. Nothing else happened after that, and they arrived at the main gate of Serak 3. After that, the mountain range descending from Mount Cadinius slowly came into view. The gate showed off the size and splendor of the city. The Aina Multiracial League had originally been a country formed from the union of many races. Among them were highly intelligent giants. That was probably the link here. However, they had not seen any zombies in the vicinity. In some cities, one could see zombies spilling out from the city gate, but there were none in sight here. Certainly, that would not be the case if the gate was shut. But the gates were wide open. Could this city have some kind of protection which prevented it from being zombified? Sator immediately dismissed that notion. The population of Serak 3 was 400,000. Surely that many survivors would have caused a huge uproar. If they had not abandoned the city, then they would have stayed here, and they would have taken extensive security measures. However, not a single whisper had come from Serak 3, to say nothing of any security. It was true that they were some distance away. But things were too quiet, even at this distance. There were no residents and no zombies. It was as though this city had been abandoned. Did someone come here and clear out the zombies? It's not entirely impossible, but then why didn't they liberate the other cities along the way? Or have they all been dominated by an undead of some power, like Corpus of the Abyss? Indeed, this place was quite a good location when considering the distance from the cities of the living and the surrounding zombification. Since it was a major city, it ought to have magical items and books for research. This place really is suited for an undead magician. After muttering to himself, the Kino in his head began lecturing him, and so Sator had no choice but to concentrate and think seriously. However, they lacked information. It would seem he had no choice but to enter the city. Say, Sator, are you going into the city? The closer we get to it, the fewer zombies we see. This is the first time we've encountered something like this. Well, I didn't come here for that reason. It seems I'll need to conduct some investigations. Sator was at a loss for what to do with Kino after this. Should he cast Create Fortress outside the city to make a fortress and have her stay in there? Or should he bring her into the city with him? Well, he would like to be able to draw on her knowledge. He ought to keep her in a safe place. Serak 3 was nothing more than a base camp to investigate the mountain range. He had only come here for ease of teleportation. He had not expected something abnormal like this to happen here. When he thought calmly about it, he realized that he had never once considered the possibility that the culprit and cause for everything might not have come from the mountains, but this city instead. It was a frustrating error. I want to go too. Perhaps you might think that it's dangerous, and that you're going to leave me here by myself, but I know more about magical ore than you do. Therefore, I'm going with you, and if there's fighting you'll protect me, won't you, Sator? Yes. I will protect you. That's my job. You're in charge of the intellectual work, while I take care of anything involving violence. In truth, he would feel better with Kino around if it turned out that there were clues present. That being the case, could Sator, as the person responsible for brute force, protect Kino when under threat? It should be possible. He had managed to keep Kino safe, even when his opponent was the Brightness Dragon Lord, the most powerful foe he had faced to date. To be precise, he had bought them time to flee. However, only a fool would act in a blind and arrogant way. He had to plot his course carefully for the sake of the future, and he could not be careless this time either. Kino, I'm giving you the usual crystal. If I give the signal or if you get attacked, you have to use it without hesitating, okay? The item he had produced from his inventory was a spell-sealing crystal imbued with greater teleportation. Spell-sealing crystals were one of the rarest magic items. In turn, they were also very easy to use, and at high levels they were employed in large quantities. As a result, Sator did not have many on him, and there were almost no spell-sealing crystals in the gear his friends had left him. He had entrusted this valuable item to her for safety's sake. Sator could destroy Kino in a single attack. Therefore, if he met an opponent that was on his level, they could probably do the same thing. It was only appropriate that they take extensive precautions so that they could deal with such an encounter. As Sator handed the crystal over, he wondered if the spell infused into it was appropriate. Perfect Unknowable might have been more useful for fleeing, but greater teleportation was the best choice if you wanted to increase the chances of Kino's survival. Kino using Perfect Unknowable might not be enough to guarantee that there were no mishaps. While he had scrolls containing Perfect Unknowable, a low-level magic caster like Kino would not be able to use them. Wands could not contain such a spell, so Sator did not have one. If he wanted one, he would need a world-class item that could allow him to make requests of the developers. Perhaps Kino could have used his staff, but unfortunately Sator did not have staves imbued with Perfect Unknowable. Perfect Unknowable appeared to be a very effective spell at a glance, but its inability to be applied to others meant that it saw surprisingly little use in party play. While it was possible that ambushers might use it, both Sator and enemies of Manga's level had many spells or abilities to see through it. In the worst-case scenario, one might end up being invisible to friends but not to enemies, which would mean that they could not be healed or supported by their friends. Simply put, many players considered Perfect Unknowable to be a spell that was used on themselves when facing lower-level opponents or numerous opponents. Therefore, the average player did not learn that spell, but instead used consumable items to make up the shortfall. Sator was the reverse. Since he could cast many spells, he chose to learn it himself rather than rely on consumables. Therefore, he could not give her any appropriate items at a time like this.